Hello all, welcome to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy. So before we actually start the session, I would actually want to read what is actually written over here. So it says, in the race for success, speed is less important than stamina. This is one of the most important takeaways that we need to actually take with us in, either the UPSC preparation, the career, or even in your family life, okay? Because the pace at which you run is not important, because sometimes it will be like you're running fast but you are still running in circles where you'll not be able to reach your destination. So the ultimatum is, what is the stamina you have in order to not give up on your aspirations. So here the speed actually does not ultimately matter. So this is actually the takeaway for the day and also for the next few years of your preparation, where you'll be giving your sweat and blood for this UPSC preparation. Now, let us actually move ahead. So, now getting back to the topic, we've actually picked up few important articles from both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express. This is Sureka B, who is actually presenting the Hindu analysis as well as that is the daily news analysis for you. So now let me take you through the number of topics that we'll be discussing here. So totally we'll be discussing 4 topics. First is Donald Trump makes historic comeback, and he has actually won for the second term. So this is actually, I have clubbed so many articles from both the Hindu and the Indian Express. So whenever there are actually the election results, be it from the USA or of Russia or from India, we need to know how the particular elected power or the presidentship is actually going to affect, or it is going to help in the transition of geopolitics in the world, because geopolitics and international relations are very, very important topics for your prelims as well as the mains examination. So we will see the election of Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States of America. What is the impact of his presidentship? What is going to be his impact in the future? And let us also, the impact of him in the world as well as, for India becomes very, very important for us. And also, before going through that, we'll be discussing about how has been the first innings and the historical ties between India and the US in his first innings. Okay, that is, he was elected as the president in the period of 2016. So 2016 to 2020 was his term. The second term he actually lost, and now it is actually the next win. So it is not his consecutive win. So he has actually now been elected as the 47th president of the United States. So we'll be discussing about that. The second article, RNA editing is promising to go where DNA editing can't. So this particular article has been taken from the science section of the Hindu. So basically it talks about what is RNA, what is DNA, and how is RNA editing actually done, how is it different from that of the gene or the genome editing, and what significance does it actually hold in the physiology, that is in medicine as well as the precision medicine, etc. Now moving forward, the third article has been picked up from page number 8 of the Hindu. PM-Vidyalaxmi Scheme for higher education gets a nod. So recently the cabinet has actually approved this particular PM-Vidyalaxmi Scheme, which is a central sector scheme. So here we'll be discussing about what is the area of focus, whether it is a central sector scheme or whether it is actually a centrally sponsored scheme, what are the various provisions of the scheme, and what is the status of higher education in India, what are the other initiatives that Indian government has taken in order to boost the higher education in India. All that we'll discuss over here. Now moving forward, the last article that we'll be discussing for the day has been picked up from page number 6 of the Indian Express. Sanction needed under PMLA to prosecute public servants, says SC. So recently the Supreme Court has actually ruled that there has to be prior permission that you need to take from the government before accusing or prosecuting a public servant or a government servant. So here we'll actually talk about what is the provision of CRPC that actually gives the authority to prosecute the public servant, whether it can override the powers of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act or not, what is Money Laundering Act, and what are the objectives and the various provisions in the recent amendments as well as the recent Supreme Court ruling is what we'll be discussing here. So having discussed enough, so now let us actually start with the first and foremost article for the day. Donald Trump makes historic comeback, wins second term. So see, this particular topic is very, very important, okay, because when there is what to say, a presidential election, or somebody has come to power, like for example the prime minister actually comes to power in India, it is very, very important for us to understand what is the kind of political system that is existing in India and how do we actually compare it with the rest of the world. And that is very important because questions have been asked in the previous years, okay. So this particular topic we'll be discussing about the comparison of India as well as the US political systems. Political systems as in whether it is a whether it is a republic or whether it is a democracy, whether it has a federal structure, whether it's a monarchy or not. All these terms become very, very important, okay. And we'll also discuss about what is the structure of the parliament. We call parliament over here, but that is the legislature is called as a parliament in India, right? Similarly, over there it is actually called as the Congress. And over there we will understand what is the role of Senate as well as House of Representatives. All this becomes extremely important. So please do pay attention. So here comparison of India as well as the US political systems, as well as how is this particular win going to affect or help in the transition for good or for bad in the geopolitics of the world. And also this particular topic becomes important for the mains examination. For prelims, questions like this can be asked what to say, in the US the president is elected indirectly or through the proportional representation, all those things can be there. Next one, for the mains examination, it is under GS paper 2, comparison of Indian constitutional scheme with that of the other countries, very, very important, and effect of policies and politics of developed countries on India's interests. Now, let us quickly move ahead and deal with whatever we actually want to read here. So here, there has been a previous year question that has been asked in 2018 mains examination with respect to India as well as US, okay. It says India and the US are two large democracies, okay. So examine the basic tenets on which the two political systems are based. So here the political systems of different countries you need to know, because once I think secularism with respect to France and India were actually asked in the exam. So this becomes, all these terms become important, okay, specifically the preamble terms I can say. Now moving forward, Donald Trump has actually won the 2024 US presidential election. So there was a presidential election in the United States, just as how we have the parliament elections in India. So there was an election in the United States, and here the US presidential election was there, and here the Mr. Trump had actually become the 47th president, and he is the first person to return to White House after losing re-election in over 120 years. So people like Barack Obama, etc., they would have actually won consecutively, okay, the previous term and the second term, but he had actually lost in between, and now he has returned to power. So that is what this particular, the context actually says. Now, let us quickly compare, the political system that exists in the United States of America versus the political system of India. Okay. So this is what we're going to discuss. So what is the system of government that actually exists in the United States is that it is a federal republic and it is a presidential form of government, or it actually follows presidential system. Okay. So what do you mean by federal republic? Here, federal is nothing but it is a form of government where the powers are actually shared between the center and the state. Okay. Or you can say the powers are actually shared between the center and the provincial governments, and here the provincial governments are nothing but these are called as the states. So it is a federal. What do you mean by republic? Here the head is actually an elected person. He is not a king, or it is not a monarchy. Okay, so here the elected person is actually there. So if you say United States, it's a federal republic and there is a presidential system where the president actually happens to be the head of the state and the head of the government. So that is the system of government in the US. If you see with respect to India, we are a federal parliamentary republic. Okay, we have a parliament that is called as the legislature. We have the lower house, that is the Lok Sabha. We have the upper house, that is the representation of all states and union, that is called as the Rajya Sabha, right? So through election we also elect our head, and we are also federal. We have a center as well as we have different states, and that is why, and then it is a parliamentary system. I hope all of you understood the first point. Now moving to the second, the head of the state actually happens to be the president. Okay, so president, how is he elected? He is elected separately from that of the legislature. And here if you see, the president happens to be the ceremonial head, and he is actually elected indirectly. Okay, so we don't cast a vote to elect the president of India. Okay, so there is indirect election that actually happens through proportional representation of single transferable vote. So this process is very, very important for you to understand. Okay, next one, the head of the government in United States happens to be the president, whereas in India it is the prime minister, because president happens to be a ceremonial head. Okay, so moving ahead, after discussing about the system of government, what is the structure of legislature over there? So legislature, actually over here, the legislature in India is called as a parliament, right? It consists of the upper house, that is the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house, and it has a lower house which is called as the Lok Sabha. Okay, so we actually elect the members, that is the MLAs are there, and they actually elect the MPs. So this is what it is. Okay, so here it is bicameral, where our legislature is called as a parliament, whereas their legislature is called as the Congress, and that consists of the upper house, that is nothing but the Senate, as well as the House of Representatives. This is nothing but the lower house. Okay, which is synonymous with that of our Lok Sabha. So now I hope you understood a comparison between what is the kind of political system in the parliamentary system in India as well as the US. So if you actually see here, the Congress is the legislature, and then you have something called as the Senate, that is the upper house, and here there are 100 elected senators. See, if you see, United States is actually a combination of 50 states, right? So from each state there will be 2 people who are elected as senators. So 2 into 50 is how much? So 2% from each state, 2 into 50 is 100. So there are 100 elected senators in total, that is 2 senators per state. This is the upper house, which corresponds to the Rajya Sabha. And moving on to the House of Representatives, which corresponds to the Lok Sabha. Here there are 435 elected representatives, and the representatives are actually taken based on the population size. Okay, very, very important. So this is the population size. When you see India, here the legislature is called as a Parliament of India. It actually has a representation of states and UTs in one house, that is the upper house, that is the Rajya Sabha here, which has not more than 250 members, and 12 are actually nominated by the president, and also not more than 238 of this are the representatives of the states as well as the UTs. This is the Rajya Sabha. When you move to the House of the People, that is the Lok Sabha, synonymous to the House of Representatives of the US, here you have not more than 545 members, and there 530 representatives of people are there, and 2 nominated Anglo-Indian representatives. This was actually earlier there, but recently done away with by 104th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2019. Very, very important. And also if you see, there are not more than 13 representation in the Lok Sabha from the UTs. So this is the comparison between the political system or the parliamentary system between the US as well as our country, that is India. Now moving forward, how is the President of India elected? It is very simple. There is an electoral college, that is a group of people. They will actually indirectly elect the president. So indirectly elected, and who constitute this electoral college? Elected members of both the houses, that is elected members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha should be there, very important, and elected members of the state legislative assembly should be there. Next, elected members of the state legislative assemblies of two UTs only, that is Delhi as well as Puducherry should be there. And it is very important to understand that nominated members of both the houses are not eligible for voting, in order to elect the President of India. And voting method is single transferable vote through a secret ballot. Okay, so voting is actually not done, openly. So it is a single transferable vote through secret ballot. Okay, so this is what it is. I hope you actually know. So for example, if there are A, B, C, D people, okay, so there are four candidates for presidents. What happens is that this electoral college consisting of these members, they will have preferences. For example, there are more number of preferences to A. For example, if you see, the electoral college consists of 100 people, okay. So 100 people, they will have their own preferences, and whoever actually qualifies more than 50, whoever gets more than 50 votes, that is more than half of it, actually becomes the president, okay. So they will have their preferences. For example, person X actually has the first preference of A, the second preference of B, third as C, and then fourth as D. Then the second person Y will actually have first preference as B. So the word B, and then the second preference as A, third preference and fourth preference. So this actually goes on, okay. So whoever reaches the 51st, they will actually win, and whoever has the minimum, in case if no one actually gets 50, for example, if no one gets 50, what happens? The person with the least number of votes will actually be removed, and that will be distributed among the first and the second preferences, okay. And then that person is actually deemed to have won the presidential election. So this is what is called as single transferable vote, indirect this one method, and also proportional representation. Now moving forward, see, this is what proportional representation. Each MP and MLA's vote actually has a value that is based on the formula, that is number of seats divided by the population into 1000. There's some formula. So each MP and MLA's vote has a value based on a formula, and the value of an MP's vote is uniform across India, whereas MLA vote is actually not uniform. MP is uniform. MLA is actually dependent on the population of the state. How is the vote calculation done? So here, whoever gets more than half of the valid votes will win. And the election uses a quota system. That is, if no candidate actually secures more than or the required quota in the first round, then the candidate with the least votes will be eliminated, and it is actually transferred to the remaining according to the preferences. Okay, this is what I explained in the previous slide. Now, moving on to the next one. What is the term and eligibility? President can actually serve a term of 5 years, and it is actually eligible. He or she is eligible for re-election. Very, 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 very important point. Whether the person is re-eligible or not, very, very important. Next one, to be eligible, the person should be a citizen of India, should be at least 35 years old and qualified for election as a member of the Lok Sabha. Very, very important. Whether it's both the houses of the parliament or not, or whether it is the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, very, very important. Now moving forward, let us now jump into how is the President of United States of America actually elected. Very, very interesting, okay, because now that we've actually understood how the President of India is elected. So here, the President of USA is also elected indirectly, but it actually differs. So first, let's see what if I am, a citizen of India, citizen of US, what are all the eligibility? Let's see. If I want to become the president of US, what are all the eligibility that I need to, meet? First one, I have to be a citizen of the United States, okay? So natural born citizen, and the minimum age actually has to be 35 years of age, and should actually be a US resident for at least 14 years. So this is how. So qualifying these three criteria, I am actually eligible for contesting a presidential election. So what is actually the process of choosing the candidates is what we need to see. For example, let me actually say in easy terms, this is United States, okay? So it has so many states, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So on, it actually has total number of states as 50 states, okay? So what happens is, For example, I am taking the state of Texas. Okay, from Texas, what happens? There are only two parties. It's not a multi-party system. There are only two parties in the United States, that is the Democrats as well as the Republicans. So the Democratic as well as the Republicans, and Trump, who has been elected recently to power, belongs to the Republican. Do you understand? So now what happens? This state of Texas actually has the Democratic as well as Republicans. Here what happens, there will be number of people who will be interested to become the president. Okay, they'll say that, yeah, I have so much of expertise, I qualify, because with all these three eligibilities I am qualified to become a president. I have so much of legal knowledge, I have a sound background, my economy planning, everything is different, all those things. So many people will actually come from both the Republican as well as the Democratic Party, who are willing to contest elections in order to become the president of the United States. Okay, so what happens from Texas, and this process, let's say there are 50 people from here, or let's say there are 100 people from here, and there are 100 people from this party from Texas alone. So both actually cater to 200. Okay, so similarly from every state, for example, you take Utah, then you can actually take Atlanta. So you can take different states over here. From there, what happens is that different number of people actually come. So over here 200 will be there, then from another state there will be 200 or 250 people. So they actually come together. And from there, what happens is that there is a process that is actually called as the caucuses and the primaries. Okay, caucuses means the parties will actually come together. They'll say, okay, from Democratic Party there are 100 people from the state of Texas who are actually willing to contest for the presidential election. Then from the Republican Party there are 150 people. So that they actually come from different states. So what happens is that there is a phenomenon of caucuses that actually happen, that will select the best among the people. Okay, so this is what it is. There are many people who want to be the president. They have their own ideas about how the government should work. So what immediately happens is, people with similar ideas will belong to the same political party, and this is where primaries and caucuses actually come in. That is, from political parties are coming. So candidates from each political party, that is either be it the Democratic Party or the Republic Party, they campaign throughout the country to win the favor of their party members. So in a caucuses, what happened? The party members will come together and choose, okay, out of these 150 people, these 50 people are fine. So that actually happens through caucuses. In the primary, what happens is that out of these 50 people, only one person is actually selected to contest from each political party is selected to contest for the presidential elections. Do you understand? So here, out of all these people, this is actually the caucuses. Okay, from here what happens? The best of best is actually selected in order to contest the presidential election. So there are national conventions. Okay, so each party will actually hold the national convention in order to select a presidential nominee. Don't worry, if you're not able to see this, you will be able to see that in our DNA notes that will actually come across in your Telegram as well as on the website. Okay, so don't worry about this. So at each convention, every party will have a convention to actually select the best of the candidate, and the presidential candidate chooses a running mate. That is, for example, if I am actually chosen as the best one through the primary, okay, for to contest the presidential election, now I will actually select another person also from my same party to be the vice president. And now the presidential candidates campaign throughout the country to win the support of the general election. This is where the twist is. Okay, so you think that all this process happens and finally the citizens will actually directly vote to this particular person. That is, either be it Joe Biden or either be it Trump. You think that we actually the citizens directly vote for them? No, it is not that. The citizens vote for the electoral college. Okay, from each state there are a group of people from each party to whom the citizen actually votes for, and they in turn actually vote for these candidates, and whoever gets the maximum. For example, there will be around 538 electoral votes. Okay, and whoever actually wins around 270 is declared as the president of the United States of America. So the newly elected president and the vice president are actually inaugurated in the month of January. So this is the process that actually takes place over there. And now your understanding is to how this process of elections of the president is actually different from that of India and United States is important for you to understand. Now moving forward, what have been the key offers by by Trump or the Trump administration? So there's something called as Agenda 47. This is nothing but he's the 47th president, right? So there is something called as Agenda 47. So what are the propaganda? What were the propaganda or the election manifesto of this particular person before the elections? Let's see. First one, with respect to economic policies, he actually said that I am going to, because after this COVID-19 pandemic of 2020, there has been huge inflation and volatility in the US economy. So this person actually stated that I am going to make inflation, I'm going to end inflation and make America affordable again. And also the second one, he said that I would extend and make permanent individual income tax cuts. See, however, the US economy is undergoing trade deficits. What is trade deficit? Trade deficit is nothing but your exports is actually lesser when compared to that of your imports. Okay, so that actually causes a lot of trade deficit. So despite that, he actually said, I'm going to give you a lot of income tax cuts. That is, there's going to be lesser imposition of tax on my citizens. That's what he told. And then he said that there is going to be imposing of universal baseline tariffs on most foreign goods. That is, whoever is going to import into my country, they are going to pay hell a lot of tariffs. That's what he said. Specifically for China, it's going to be 60%. Okay, so good. So this is what he is actually told. Next one, with respect to foreign policy, what did he say? He actually said that he is going to conduct the largest deportation. That is deportation. There are a lot of illegal immigrants, right? So people always have that stereotypical or the mindset that always pastures are greener on the other side. They say they actually feel that the life in the US, because it's a first world, it's going to be amazing, because the environment is good, the people are good and everything. And you see, almost every Tom, Dick and Harry moved to the United States to enjoy a comfortable life. So here, this is where they say all the illegal immigrants, I'm going to send them back home. Okay, so deport them. Deportation operation in US ever in history. And also complete construction of southern border wall is what he actually spoke about. And next one, that is what the border wall between the United States as well as Mexico. Next one, foreign policy, implement stricter immigration enforcement measures. Yes, earlier there were a lot of measures. Okay, there were restrictions on H-1B visa where it actually allowed Indians to work only for a specific amount of time. Okay, and even the green cards approval were actually difficult. And then they, in his previous term, and also they said that dependents, that is the wives of persons who are actually working there, who go to the US, they are not allowed to work there. So that is what were actually said. Next one, with respect to immigration and border security, he actually said a very, very interesting thing. This person actually has a lot of audacity, and he has actually said that he's going to end the Ukraine-Russia war within 24 hours after him being elected to power. Next one, he said that he will re-evaluate NATO commitments for countries not meeting defense spending targets. Now you know what is NATO, right? It is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It consists of a lot of countries towards the, across the Atlantic Ocean. A number of countries are actually over here. So this actually includes countries like Finland, Sweden, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, etc. So which are part of NATO. They said that, okay, he said that I'm going to re-evaluate who can be the members, okay, and people who are not contributing enough to the defense framework, then I'm going to chuck you guys outside. So this is what he said. Next one, support Israel while criticizing handling of Gaza war. He said that I would not, see, there's a lot of volatility that is actually going on, right, between in the Central Asian region and also the West Asian region, the Middle East region. So what happens is he is saying that I am not going to support the war in Gaza, but I am going to favor Israel, is what he's actually saying. You guys know, right? So there is Israel-Palestine conflict. Palestinian are the Arab people, and Israel consists of Jews. So always the fight has been between Arabs as well as Jews. And here what happens, these Jew people are also attacking against, what to say, the Hamas. So who are Hamas? These are indirectly the supporters of Palestine, and all, the Hamas and Palestine all are being backed by Iran. So here what happens, ultimately United States actually becomes an enemy of Iran. Okay, so that is why, the oil imports as well as trade restrictions, sanctions, everything is actually imposed by US on Iran. Next one, allow states to set their own abortion laws, because recently there were a lot of things were in the news that different states were actually proposing that there has to be a single uniform law with respect to that of abortion, because the abortion rates were actually, abortion rates means the number of abortion was actually were increased in the US. So this is what he said, that there's not going to be any particular national law, but then I'm going to give it to the discretion of the states. Next one, he said that I'm going to ban transgender women from participating in women's sports. Also, he said any school that I actually find who are propagating kind of race and gender, the central funding will actually be cut for them. So this is Agenda 47 of Mr. Trump. Now moving forward, what Trump 2.0 means for the world? This is very simple, right? As I actually told you, Trump's agenda. First one, he said that there's going to be tariff on the imports, and specifically for cars, I will levy 200% of duty on the cars. I'm going to send away a lot of irregular immigrants, or illegal. Next one, I am going to extend the tax cuts despite my country is undergoing, a kind of budget deficit. It's all right, because citizens or America first is my policy. Next one, potential global economic impacts. Okay, so here there are going to be higher inflation in the US. Okay, how I say actually inflation is going to be high, because when there is a lot of volatility with respect to exports and imports. For example, I'm not importing any of the sufficient items, okay, for my country. I say that I'm going to be self-sufficient and start producing each and everything. What happens is that there's going to be increase in the price level, and there's going to be inflation due to tariffs as well as trade wars, specifically with respect to that of China. Next, there's going to be, so whenever there is inflation in India, what happens? The RBI pitches in and it actually increases or reduces or cuts the repo rates, right, in order to maintain inflation. So similarly, Federal Reserve is actually the central bank which actually comes up with federal rate cut or rate hikes in order to manage the inflation in the United States. So when there is so much of volatility and inflation, what happens is that the decisions that are taken by the Federal Reserves are going to be diluted. Next one, weakening of the US dollars. So what happens when inflation is high in any economy, or when there is extreme volatility due to trade wars? Investors don't come in, right? And whoever are the investors already there, they actually tend to go out. So this is why. Next one is disruptions to the global supply chains as well as the trade flows. So this is actually very, very obvious. The next one, the historical context. What does this say? That is, next one is geopolitics. First, we actually spoke about trade. Now, we will be speaking about geopolitics. So, let's see. Trump's administration approach always focuses on America's first policy, because he feels that multilateral commitments come second for me, and what comes first for me is America's first. So, US interest is actually paramount for me, is what he says. Next one. So that is why he withdrew from certain partnerships, that is Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is nothing but the trade agreement between different countries. Okay, he said that no, I don't want to be in trade agreements with any country, because I want to first make my country self-sufficient. That is why he walked out of this Trans-Pacific Partnership. Here you have countries like Singapore, Brunei, etc. But still he walked out of it. He reconsidered the alliances of the NATO, I already told you. And there was heightened or extreme tensions between US-China trade because of imposition of lot of import duties on China, that is up to the level of 60%. Next one, impact on West Asia. You know that it's going to follow, that is he is going to follow the pro-Israel policies, that is he's going to give likely stronger support, and also he is anti-Iran. Okay, so anti-Iran stance, I told you how it is, because the Hamas are actually the what to say, supporters of Palestine, and this is actually backed by the country of Iran. So ultimately, Israel is opponent to Iran, and here US supports Israel. So this is how it is. Very easy geopolitics. Next one, the increasing Iran-China axis. This also has been opposed by Mr. Trump. Next is Russia-Ukraine war. He actually said that after I come to power in 24 hours, I'm going to settle the disputes, because we know that in 2019 or 2020, Russia had actually launched attacks on, parts of Ukraine like Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, then Luhansk area, etc. So he actually says, I'm going to possibly discuss about the ceasefire. Next one is NATO skepticism, that is criticizes allies who are not meeting the defense spending. Okay, so that the alliance actually stays intact. Next one is environmental and climate change. This fellow, that is this guy, has actually said that he's going to walk out of the Paris Agreement. Okay, that's a historical deal which actually aims to address the climate change, right? Or to keep the temperature under control, anything that is increasing global temperature below 2 degrees, right? So that is what. In 2017, Mr. Trump announced US exit from the Paris Climate Agreement. Reason is that he said bad deal. Okay, so he said it's a bad deal. I'm going to spend billions in my payments. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to compromise in increasing my security. Lot of money goes out on climate change. What is there for me to, take care of my defense? That's what he said. And the coal industry is actually going to be impacted, obviously, because if I'm talking about climate change, I need to stop my carbon what to say, emission, GHG emission, etc. So my coal industry is going to be affected. And now what happened after his exit? The agreement was joined again by Biden's government in 2020. Now, what are the current concerns? Experts are very anxious because of the carbon mitigation, because once he walks out, there's going to be huge industrial development, etc. Next one, he is actually, what to say, he is a strong propounder of this particular fracking process. What is fracking process? It is a method which is actually used for extracting shale oil. He says that rather than depending on other countries for importing oil, let us actually do our own. So this is what it is. So again, the oil supply, volatility, economy, imports, everything is going to be affected. So distrust of scientific consensus on GH, that is greenhouse gas warming. And what are the key issues at stake? New collective quantified goal, that is revised financial target for developed countries climate aid. So current target is actually $100 billion annually. Now let's see what is actually going to be the contribution of the developed world to the developing world, and the new figure is expected by 2025. Okay, so now moving forward, the trade. After China, if Trump decides to act against the imports from India, it will actually hurt the exports, right? So he also has said that, sorry, here we are discussing about what Trump 2.0 means for India. For the world, we've actually seen. So here it is actually again going to affect our exports. Next one, in the earlier term, Washington took certain measures negatively impacting export, because in his earlier term already it had actually affected India's exports. If you see the trade or India's exports to the US is around 80 billion US dollars. Okay, so now let us see how this will actually change. So that is what this article says. And moving on, oil. Obviously, there is actually going to be downward pressure on the oil prices. Oil prices are going to go down everywhere across the world, because he is going to do fracking and take away shale oil and supply it to the whole world. So his prices will increase, the oil prices, the global supply will come down, or the demand will actually come down. So here if you see, the US is India's 5th largest oil supplier. So lower prices in case shale oil abundance is there, there's good, a deal. What happened? It's going to be good for India, because India is the 3rd largest consumer of crude. Also, if we rely too much on oil imports, that is going to make the Indian economy very, very volatile to the prices. Okay, so this is what it is. Next one is IT. You know, right? A lot of Indians actually go there for a fancy lifestyle and for a, good standard and quality of life. But then they are actually going to be impacted by restrictions and stringent provisions on H1B visa. Because if you see this previous term, there were denial of H1B visa, and it was almost 80% during Trump's administration, but that was only 3.2 during the Biden's administration. Okay, so that is what it's actually talking about. Now let us quickly solve one mains question, practice question, because now you can quickly relate to what kind of answer you can give. Okay, so compare and contrast the political systems of India and United States of America. It's going to be very, very simple, right? First, you will talk about system of government. It's a federal republic. Here it is going to be a parliamentary system and federal parliamentary republic. Head of state, against president, but he is a ceremonial head over here. Next one, head of government, again is president here, but here it is the prime minister. Legislative structure, again bicameral, here also bicameral. Judiciary is going to be independent, and Supreme Court is the highest authority here as well. Supreme Court is the highest authority. Federal structure, there are different constitutions. Center actually gives a constitution. States have significant autonomy over here. Sorry, here I think I have actually made a mistake. Here it is a strong federal system. States have significant autonomy. Okay. Yes, and states have independent constitutions. Yes, this is correct. So here, cooperative federalism, but however we say India is also a federal country, but more of the power and that authority actually lies with the center. So this is what it is. Here, with respect to state administration, governors are appointed by the central government and state actually follows the constitution of India. There's only one constitution. Then political parties, if you see, predominantly it has Democratic and Republic Party, that is a two-party system. Here it actually has multi-party system, that is there are a lot of national parties as well as the regional parties as well. So this is what is the this one introduction, that is India and US are both democracies, but they actually differ in their political structures. In the body you will actually compare and contrast the kind of governments both of them actually have. And in the conclusion you will say that this kind of a political setup that is differing between India and US, it is because of a lot of historical, cultural and social context. Okay, and also colonization was there in India, right? So these structure variances, this actually influences to an extent the governance of the country, the political accountability, how much a citizen is engaged in a particular country. So this is what is this particular article. Now quickly moving on. Recently, you know that this RNA, DNA, a lot of things have been in use, right? Because in 2023 as well as 2024, the Nobel Prize for Physiology has been awarded to mRNA, that is messenger RNA in 2023, and microRNA, that is miRNA in 2024. Okay. So this is one of the topics, that is microRNAs have been recently dealt with by me only in one of your, I think on 8th October, if you guys actually see that video has the description about the Nobel Prize for Physiology. Okay. So here we'll be discussing about RNA editing and how it is different from that of the DNA editing. Simple, let us actually quickly go through that. So this article we'll be discussing about RNA editing, and this is actually important for both your prelims as well as mains examination. Comes under GS paper 3, science and technology, developments and applications in everyday life. So let's move forward. There has been a previous year question on this particular RNA interference, and this is actually a 2016 question in the prelims. So moving forward, recently there has been a biotechnology company in Massachusetts, that is the company's name is Wave Life Sciences. They have actually cured, or they had actually treated a genetic disorder by gene editing, not gene editing, RNA editing, I will actually say at the clinical level. So for this you need to have a basic understanding of what an RNA is and what a DNA is. Let me quickly actually get you through that. So DNA and RNA are genetic material. Okay, so let us actually start with DNA. DNA actually stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay, so why is it called as deoxyribo? This particular ribose is nothing but the sugar that is present inside the DNA molecule. First of all, DNA is a molecule that consists of all the genetic characteristics. Okay, they say no, it's your genes. You behave like this because it's your gene. You have curly hair, it's because of your gene. You have blue eyes, it's because of something that you have inherited from your ancestors or your parents. Okay, so this is actually, DNA is a molecule that comprises of the genetic material. Okay. So it is called as deoxyribose because inside of this nucleus, inside of this particular molecule, there is the sugar that is called as ribose, and this ribose sugar actually misses one particular oxygen atom. So because there is absence of oxygen, this is called as deoxyribose. Okay. So why is it called as nucleic acid? Because it is made up of a number of nucleotides. What are nucleotides? These are building blocks of this particular DNA or the genetic material. Okay. So this is what is called as DNA. How does the DNA actually look? It is a double helical structure and it has special molecules that are attached to it, and they are called as adenine, thymine, guanine as well as cytosine. All these are basics in your science NCERT. So here adenine actually joins or pairs with thymine and guanine actually pairs with cytosine. Okay, so this is what it is, and here it is actually present in the nucleus. Okay, so this is very, very important. So this is actually the structure of DNA and what does it do and where is it actually present. Okay, so this is what it is. Now moving on, what is RNA? RNA is nothing but it is actually a helper of DNA. What do I mean by helper? All the genetic information that is present here, it is actually read and it is actually being coded or decoded by this particular RNA only. Okay, so this is actually a helper to that of DNA. It is a single helix structure. This also has special molecules. It has adenine, it has guanine, it has cytosine, but instead of thymine, it has something called as uracil. This is called as the basis. Okay, so what is this uracil? This actually has something to do with the structure of the RNA. And this is one, in fact, makes the structure of the RNA less stable when compared to that of the DNA. So this is RNA as well as DNA. Okay. So now you know. So in order to, why do genetic diseases actually occur? If any one of the bases here are actually not proper, they are called as aberrations. Okay, any aberrations in that composition will definitely result in your genetic diseases. So in RNA editing, the name itself actually says, right, here what happens, the bases can actually be temporarily removed. Okay, so that is what is called as RNA editing. So here let's see, Wave Sciences, it's a biotechnology company that became the first to treat a genetic disorder through RNA editing at the clinical level. Now moving on, let's see what does the article actually have to say. I told you RNA, an important molecule that actually helps in coding. Coding means what? It actually writes down the instruction on how to build a protein. It actually helps in decoding. Decoding means what? Understanding on how to build a protein. So writing, understanding, regulation is what? It acts as a control system. There are certain genes in our body which are too active and there are less active. In order to balance, it actually helps. Okay, so that is what is regulation, as well as expression of genes. That is when the protein is finally made, that is called as expression. So it is a double helical structure, it is a single helical structure, and this is mainly, DNA is actually found in the nucleus, whereas the RNA is actually found in the cytoplasm. That is nothing but the fluid which is actually present in our cells. Okay, so this is what it is. Now moving forward, let us actually see what are the types of RNA. There are messenger RNA that actually codes proteins. There are transfer RNAs, micro RNAs. Okay, and there are small interfering RNA which actually silences the expressions. Also, there are ink RNA, that is long non-coding RNA. So all these are different types of RNA. So this will be actually given in your notes. Not very important, but you need to know messenger RNA, this also won a Nobel Prize, and micro RNA also won a Nobel Prize. So that way you need to know what it is. Okay. So now moving forward, what is RNA editing and how it is actually done? It is nothing but it's a simple process. Okay. It is actually going to alter. RNA molecules have a lot of instructions written on it, right? So when the RNA molecule actually has lot of instructions written on it, in case if there has to be any kind of alteration, okay, for example, if I have to remove this because this is an aberration or it is abnormal and it's going to cause any kind of genetic disease, then RNA editing actually allows the scientist to alter the instructions. Okay, so this will correct the errors that could lead to faulty protein production. Whereas How it is different from that of DNA? This actually causes temporary removal, whereas DNA editing actually causes permanent alteration in the genome. Okay, genome of a body is what? It is actually the cell, or it's an entity that consists of the entire genetic material. Okay, so this will help to treat a variety of genetic conditions. What? That is RNA editing, because it's going to be temporary also. Okay, now moving forward, let us understand further. So what is the correlation between, see, gene editing always has something called as CRISPR-Cas9. Okay, so that is nothing but it is called as the molecular scissors. Okay, that is actually used to edit the aberrations of the genes and actually make it healthy. So in CRISPR-Cas9, what happens? It is used to edit the DNA, but there is permanent, editing in the genome of the organism. Whereas RNA editing targets the RNA, it is actually temporary changes can be made so that the protein that is affected is actually changed, okay, without altering the underlying DNA. What is the mechanism? Under CRISPR-Cas9, this Cas9 enzyme is actually used and it is guided by RNA. Okay, so CRISPR-Cas9 में you actually have Cas9 is the enzyme that is actually used, and that is used to cut the DNA sequences. Once the DNA sequences are cut, what happens? Researchers can find and replace the problematic DNA. So that is what is CRISPR-Cas9. Now moving forward, whereas in RNA editing, this actually uses enzymes that is called as ADAR. That stands for adenosine deaminase acting on RNA. So this will actually make specific changes. For example, it will make the adenosine to inosine, which actually is similar to that of guanosine in RNA. See, don't try to understand all this much, okay? You just have to know RNA editing. RNA editing is nothing but it is temporary in nature, so that it actually does not change the entire genome. Whereas DNA editing changes the entire genome and it is it's permanent also. So temporary, it's actually easy for us, okay? And also with respect to immune response, it actually says that the ADAR enzymes, that is adenosine deaminase acting on RNA, these enzymes are naturally present in the body. So there are no immune reactions or any kind of bacterial infections that will actually, affect us. But DNA editing methods like CRISPR-Cas9 actually is actually has difficulty with respect to that of immune response. So this is what it is actually saying. Okay, so lower immune response is one of the important things. Next one, if you see what are the applications, first one, it is actually used to fix the genetic errors. It can restore the protein structure normally so that you have healthy functioning of a liver as well as the lung function. Second one, other genetic conditions, like for example, it is trying to be used for other diseases like Huntington's disease, then obesity, heart, liver issues, and some brain related conditions also. Also, in terms of gene modification, it helps to treat the complex genetic issues, specifically when regular gene therapies actually don't work, okay, with respect to immunity. Now moving on. Now let us quickly solve another question. Which of the following is incorrect about the RNA editing technology? So RNA editing provides a permanent change to the genome. Next, no, it is actually wrong, right? It is a temporary this one. So obviously the answer will actually be A, because it is the wrong answer. Now let us quickly move to the next one. PM-Vidyalaxmi Scheme for higher education gets a norm. So first of all, we need to understand what is higher education. Education in India can actually be categorized into three, okay. First is primary education, secondary education, and tertiary education. So primary education is what? Primary education is your first 10 years, okay, till your 10th standard. Secondary education is your 11th and your 12th standard. And tertiary education is nothing but your higher education. Do you understand? So if you see, as per the All India Survey of Higher Education 2020-2021, there are almost 1,000 universities in India, around 42,000 colleges, etc. Okay, so under this, let us actually see what are the further things that will be discussed over here. So here we'll be discussing about PM-Vidyalaxmi scheme that focuses on higher education, and this is important for prelims and GS paper to social justice, government policies and interventions for development in various sectors, as well as issues arising out of the design as well as implementation. Now moving forward, there has been a question on Atal Pension Yojana. So these kind of schemes, whether what is the eligibility criteria and what is the funding, how it is going to be charged, whether it's a central sector scheme or a centrally sponsored scheme, all that becomes important. Okay. So the Union Cabinet has recently approved a new central sector scheme known as Vidyalaxmi Scheme. So as I told you what is the higher education, right? So as per the All India Survey of Higher Education, there have been recent things. Okay, there are certain observations made by it. For example, in 2014 there has been on 21st I'm sorry, when compared to the trend in 2014-15, there has been a 21% rise in the total student enrollment in these particular states, and female enrollment has also been increased when compared to that of 2014. It has been an increase of 28% in 2020. Also, percentage of female enrollment to total enrollment actually saw a rise, and then the gross enrollment ratio, which is nothing but one of the objectives of National Education Policy 2020. So what is National Education Policy? That has actually been brought by the government in order to increase the number of enrollments in higher education, okay, by 50%. So that is what it is saying. That is also increased. And then if you see the gender parity index, the ratio of female gross enrollment to male, that has also increased. And then institutes of national importance have actually increased, that is it almost doubled when compared to the 2014 levels. Then you have enrollment in this one has also increased, and female per 100 male faculty has also been increased. Okay, so this is what have been the observations of this particular survey. So now you understood what is higher education, what is the status of it. So now ultimately you need to know what is this particular scheme brought by the government. Here it is a financial incentive initiative in order to make higher education accessible to meritorious students by removing financial barriers. Okay, because of their financial background, they might actually not be lavish enough or have enough money to pursue their higher education. So in that case, the government wants to fund them, and this is actually launched under the aegis of National Education Policy, that is going to give you collateral free, guarantor free education. That is, when you apply for loans, what happens? They will actually ask you for a collateral, that is documents of whether you have a property. Okay, so this is going to be collateral free. It's going to be guarantor free loans to students who actually secure admissions in top ranked higher education institutions, which are identified by National Institutional Ranking Framework. So this is a framework which is used for ranking the higher institutions in India. Okay, so that actually ranks on 5 different parameters. What is what is the kind of teaching that is there, who are the graduates, what is the kind of outcome that actually comes, what is this perspective. So different percentages are given, and those are the parameters on which the NIRF gives ranking for the educational institutions in India. So this enables meritorious students from low as well as middle income backgrounds to access the quality education, and there is an entirely digitally driven portal that is called as PM-Vidyalaxmi portal. So I hope you know what is it is actually a central sector scheme. Okay, so what is a central sector scheme? It is a scheme that has been completely funded by the central government. What is the eligibility criteria? That is, institutions whichever are ranked on the top 100 in NIRF across the categories of domains. So totally the government institutions are also there, the private ones are also there. Okay, so all centrally governed institutions, state government institutions which are ranked from 101 to 200, all these are there, and it is going to approximately benefit around 22 lakh people. What are the loan features? This actually covers the full tuition cost. Entire cost of your education is actually funded by the government, and there is also credit guarantee. If your loan actually goes above 7.5 lakhs, then 75% of the guarantee is actually given by the government. So the banks will not hesitate to give you loan based on your financial background. Next one, the interest subvention. That is, what is it? students who come from families with an annual income of up to, that is, if the annual income of your father, who is the breadwinner of your family, is above, is around 8 lakhs, who are not already availing other government scholarships, they will actually have an interest cut or interest subvention of 3% on the loans, and on loans up to 10 lakhs during the moratorium period. And students with family incomes of up to 4.5 lakhs, they will actually have full interest subvention under existing schemes. Okay, so this is what it is. So this scheme is done away, and if you see the budget of around 3,600 crores have actually been allocated from the period of 2024-25 to around 2030-31. So this is what is the education. And also see, you need to read about different initiatives like the National Education Policy of 2020. I told you the aim is in order to increase your gross enrollment ratio by 50%. And also you need to talk about the institutes of eminence, right? So this is actually brought under the Ministry of HRD and under UGC, that is Universe Grants Commission. That also you need to know what is this institutes of eminence and how the ranking is actually done. And then you need to know about this NIRF ranking, and also you need to know about certain schemes like Equip. You need to know about Uchathar, Abhiyan, etc. Okay, because knowing schemes are very, very important, whether it is vulnerable sections, educations, or anything, social security, etc. Now, let us actually solve a prelims question. So, consider the following statements with respect to this Vidyalaxmi scheme. It offers a full interest subvention during the moratorium, a period for students from families with 8 lakhs. No, this is actually wrong because this is 3%. Next, only students admitted to centrally governed institutions are eligible for loans. No, this is also wrong. The scheme provides 75% government backed credit for up to loans up to 7.5 lakhs. Yes, this is correct. And the scheme aims to benefit 22 lakh students across India. This is also correct. Since 3 and 4 are correct, the option or your answer will be option B. Okay. So now moving forward, the last topic that we'll actually be seeing here is sanction needed under PMLA to prosecute public servants. First, we'll understand what the news is about. Okay. So, what does it say is, we'll be discussing about PMLA here, which is both important for prelims as well as mains examination under statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies. Okay. Now, moving forward, there have been questions with respect to that of money laundering. Why money laundering comes under this discussion? Because we are talking about Prevention of Money Laundering Act, where money laundering is an important topic. Okay. So, with respect to that, you need to know what is PMLA, what are the amendments made, what the judiciary has actually told. Very, very simple. So, Supreme Court has actually told that before you actually prosecute any particular government servant. For example, if I want to go and arrest or take an interrogation or investigate a government servant, what happens? I need to take the prior approval of the government. So that is what the Supreme Court ruled, that prior government sanction is required under section 197 of CRPC, that is the Code of Criminal Procedure. So you have to tell me whether it is BSA, BNSS, or what it is, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, whatever it is, you need to tell me. It is necessary to prosecute public servants under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay. So, did you understand this? They say that before you prosecute, take the approval of the government. That is what the Supreme Court is telling you. What is the objective of PMLA? Of course, it is to prevent money laundering. Okay, isn't it? Prevent money laundering, combat the funding by illicit activities, confiscate the proceeds of the crime which is derived from illegal activities. This is what it is. So, it gives a definition of money laundering. Any process or activity involving the concealment, acquisition or conversion of proceeds of crime into legitimate assets. That is when you are trying to convert black to white, that is called as money laundering. Next, here, what is the power of Enforcement Directorate? What is Enforcement Directorate? It is nothing but it is a law enforcement agency which is supposed to take care of crimes that are committed, that is economic crimes. Okay. So, Here, this directorate is empowered under PMLA in order to investigate the money laundering cases. It can even conduct searches, it can seize the assets and arrest the individuals who are involved in these activities. Okay, so this is what is PMLA. Attachment and confiscation of the property. Here, the properties which are acquired by money laundering can be attached by the ED and can be confiscated by the state. Okay, next is, it consists of a broad range of offences. What are they? It even includes terrorism, drug trafficking, corruption, fraud, economic offences, etc. Next one, burden of proof and recent amendments. That is, recent amendments was actually made in 2019 to this PMLA. This has actually shifted the burden on the accused, which means what? If X person is an accused of an economic offence, it is his responsibility to prove his innocence. Okay, so the recent amendment has actually shifted that to show that these are my legitimate assets. So it is his responsibility to do that. So this is what the recent amendment has said. And also it has actually made bail provisions very strict. Okay, so here for you to actually have bail, courts should actually be convinced that this particular accused is not guilty and he is not likely to commit any kind of offense in the future. And also the act actually says that India must align with international commitments as well. So with respect to PMLA, here it aligns with India's commitments to global anti-money laundering standards under FATF, that is the Financial Action Task Force. This is what actually grades different countries, right? That is the grey list and then the white list, etc. So you need to know this. Now moving forward, the judicial review. So here the recent Supreme Court decisions have actually upheld several of the powers of the Enforcement Directorate, but it underscores the need for accountability. Do you understand? It says that Enforcement Directorate cannot do in all cases, but most of it you actually have your power, but then in certain cases you have your accountability. That is, while prosecuting the public servant, you need to get the approval of the government. Okay, so that is what it is. The Supreme Court actually ruled that prosecuting public servants under PMLA requires prior government sanction, and this is as per section 197 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. This actually mandates for prior sanction to protect the public servants from unwarranted prosecution. Do you understand? However, the Enforcement Directorate argued that section 71 of PMLA grants PMLA an overriding effect over other laws, and this should nullify the need for sanction under CRPC. That is, PMLA actually has one of the provisions which says that nothing can override. That is, PMLA has overriding powers when compared to the other provisions. Okay, but Supreme Court now says that section 65 of the PMLA itself allows CRPC provisions to apply to PMLA cases as far as they actually are not in conflict with each other. So simple to understand. Now moving forward, so this is what it is. So it actually said that the need for prior government sanction under section 197 of the CRPC actually is balancing accountability and procedural protection for the public servants. Now let us solve a question. So consider the following with respect to the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The ED is the primary agency responsible for investigating the offences. Yes, this is correct. It has an overriding effect over other laws including the CRPC. No, this is actually wrong. So here the answer is only one. So your answer is option A. Yeah. So with this, we've actually come to the conclusion. So it was, of course, and a 1 hour session or 1 hour, an odd session, because we had to discuss about the political systems of the India and US, which is very important for your exam. You will likely actually end up in a question in the forthcoming prelims or your mains examination. So do prepare well until we actually meet again. Thank you so much. And if you actually like this session, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy. Thank you. Move பண்ணலாமா?